It's time for Mornings at 8 with Jonathan Mark on AM 1480 WLEA.
Well, yes, it is time for Mornings at 8, and here we are. It is 5 minutes after 8 o'clock on a Monday morning. Monday, unmistakably Monday, the start of the work week, and here we go. The 16th day of December, so that would mean that Christmas is now, let me see, 9 days away. 16th of December, Christmas, 9 days away. And here we go. Boy, a lot of activity this weekend. I I had to do a little shopping on Saturday. And the parking lot on the mall on 36, Walmart, Wegmans, all that parking lot was absolutely jammed. I mean, it was jammed. Every single spot was taken up. And then I had to go across the street to Lowe's. So I'm at Lowe's, and their parking lot was jammed. And I'm thinking, if you wanted to find a parking space in front of Walmart or Wegmans or something, you had to go across the street to the Lowe's parking lot. But if you wanted to find a space in the Lowe's parking lot, you had to go across the street. Except I don't think that would exactly work. Anyway, there was a lot of activity, lots of people out, lots of shopping, just all over the place. Wow. Especially, at this time of year, right, everybody's doing something. Everybody's really, really busy, which we will get to, a little later on here. Well, the green light law, I guess, is now in effect. And let me see, where was this? The green light law. A federal judge has dismissed the Rensselaer County clerk's challenge to the green light law. Technically, the green light law is known as the Driver's License Access and Privacy Act, or DLAPA. Anyway, so Rensselaer County Clerk Frank Marola filed a suit to try to stop that thing. And a federal judge on Friday dismissed his legal challenge to the state's new green light law. Marola had been seeking an injunction blocking the law, formerly known as the Driver's License Access and Privacy Act, and the 17-page decision by U.S. District Senior Judge Gary Sharp did not address the core issues around the law, but determined that Marola lacked capacity or the personal right to litigate in federal court. The judge, Sharp, specifically knocked down the county clerk's assertion that the green light law would oblige him to offer voter registration to undocumented immigrants. The judge wrote, "The DLAPA requires no such conduct. This is chiefly so because any prospective non-citizen voter licensed to drive under the DLAPA would have to affirmatively lie about his or her eligibility to vote." And Marola, a Republican, initially filed suit over the law last summer. The law expressly prohibits local offices of the state DMV and county clerks from sharing private information with immigration enforcement agencies about those who apply for licenses. And the clerk argued that the state law conflicts with federal statutes requiring such disclosure. In a memo of support filed last week with the U.S. District Court for the Northern District, the Federal Department of Justice said that the bar on data sharing violates federal law. And at the time, the clerk called the memo a game changer. Well, I guess it didn't change it too awfully much. So in a statement issued Friday evening, Marola said he was disappointed but hoped the decision was only a setback. He says, "We will continue to fight to be heard." He says, "This is a matter of conscience for me and something I do not take lightly. I say this as a citizen whose wife is an immigrant and naturalized citizen of this country. I do appreciate the Federal Department of Justice recognizing the state law is unconstitutional and hope other levels of our government work to stop this law being implemented." So, we will see how that goes, and the fight just goes on. Brian, who's going to be on the Newsmaker this morning?
Assemblyman Palmisano.
Assemblyman Palmisano. He might possibly have something to say about that. Who knows? Okay, and as you heard on Brian's news earlier, the governor has proposed a new gun license law ahead of the 2020 State of the State. Now, that address is coming up January 8th in Albany. And out-of-staters who have been convicted of serious misdemeanors won't be able to purchase a gun license in New York, under a new proposal the governor unveiled on Sunday. State law already bans New York residents from obtaining gun licenses if they commit misdemeanors qualified as serious offenses. But if a person lives out of state and has been convicted of a comparable serious crime, they can still secure gun licenses. And the governor's proposal would add a section to the state's penal code granting gun licensing agencies authority to deny pistol permits and gun licenses to out-of-staters who have committed similar crimes following the background checks. And if that individual already has a license but gets convicted outside New York's borders, application renewals can also be turned down. So, there you go there. Anyway, the governor will go into more detail on this in his State of the State address. That's coming up next month. Now, I did mention right smack at the beginning of the show that there's a lot of activity at this time of year. And everybody's out there shopping, they're visiting friends and relatives and decorating and buying Christmas presents and, all that. A whole bunch going on. And some people can feel a lot of stress, right? It can't, oddly enough, it should be a very pleasant, fun time of year. But it does induce a lot of stress on a lot of people. And, but, I think obligation is what you make it. Right? People feel obligated. I have to do this, and I have to do that, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. I don't know about that. I think you assume, okay, you assume that you must do this and do that. You're obligated to do nothing, Obligation is what you make it. Anyway, if you are feeling the stress, there's now where did I find this? Mediafeed.org. And there's a Dutch concept that I am all for. Boy, I cannot tell you how good this, a Dutch concept called Niksen. It's Niksen. Niksen. It's Dutch. And according to the New York Times, it's becoming more and more popular. Now, what Niksen is the art of doing nothing. It's the art of doing nothing. So you can think of Niksen as the opposite of hustling. In a nutshell, it's doing something without it being for a specific purpose, just for the pure joy of it. So, it sounds like laziness, right? Admittedly, it sounds like laziness. But this lady who wrote the story in Media Feed, what's her name? Sarah Kane, says, I assure you it's not. It's not laziness. Think taking a stroll in the park or lounging by the pool. It's like taking a break from a society that glorifies the hustle culture. So this is interesting. The struggle is real. Stress accounts for more than half of the 550 million working days lost each year due to absenteeism. 550 million working days lost every year. By one count, more than half of Americans found themselves lying awake at night due to stress. And 3/4 of Americans experience at least one symptom of stress, like fatigue, anxiousness, irritability, or anger. Now, who's this? Megan Bierce, a licensed therapist, believes stress can have a damaging effect on our health. She says we can easily be in a nonstop hypervigilant fight or flight state, she says, whether it's feeling like you need to look something up on Google right this second, or like you just can't wait for that Amazon delivery in 2 hours. And she says we need breaks. Now, Niksen, she says, is a good answer. Bierce's mom allowed her to take personal maintenance days when she was in high school, if she was ever overwhelmed. A habit she continues to this day. Now, I like this. I like this concept. That's right. Okay, think of it as being proactive with your health. You're preventing illness and recovering the effects of poor decision-making. Now, the lady who's writing the article, what was her name again? Sarah Kane. She says, I'll admit it was really weird doing nothing. I realized I had to start small to get used to the idea. You do nothing in little increments, right? Just you do nothing here for a little bit, and then you do nothing there for a little bit, and eventually you get used to it, doing nothing. Wow, okay. She says that meant watching 3 minutes of a random YouTube video in the middle of the day in another room, or sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee. And during the weekdays, she says when her son's at school, she would pick a random Spotify playlist and lay on the couch. Okay. Now, she says that Bierce, the licensed therapist, agrees with my approach. Instead of taking an hour to practice Nixon, she recommends starting with 5 minutes first. So you got to start small steps, and then you build up to like doing hours or going hours without doing a thing. Can you set your alarm 5 minutes early and just lay there and take some deep breaths instead of sleeping until your child wakes you up? Okay. And she says, Nixon is a very flexible concept. Look at your schedule to see if you have random pockets of time in the day, like a lunch break or a few minutes in the morning. Then make that time non-negotiable. For example, maybe you could take 10 minutes during your lunch hour so you can walk to the park, sit down on a bench, and stare out at the pond. It says that it's helped her enormously. She says giving yourself space to be idle can help you with better decision-making. And studies have shown that stress-related exhaustion can truly impair cognitive function. So, it has helped her with her family. It's helped her with her finances, helped her with her kids by doing nothing. And own the fact that you'll be doing nothing. And tell yourself it's for the sake of your health. Drink a hot cup of coffee while doing nothing else. Stare out the window and count leaves. There's a lot of staring going on with this. Anyway, so drink a cup of coffee, stare out the window, and count leaves. Find a place where you won't be reminded of your to-do list. So try to find opportunities to practice Nixon by spacing out when you're waiting in line at a store, or grab a pen and paper and doodle. And at the end of the day, there's only one guiding principle. She says anything that helps you slow down. So, Nixon, make a note of that. And the next time you're staring, out the window, counting leaves and totally wasting time, you can tell whoever, approaches you, hey, I'm sorry, I'm practicing Nixon. It's a Dutch concept. So there you go. Improve your life by doing nothing at all. And speaking of doing nothing at all, the latest climate conference in Spain ended yesterday. They went 2 days longer than they were going to. And apparently after all this talk, how many people were there? 25,000 people attended this climate conference, 1,500 journalists, 25,000 other people, and they accomplished zero. They didn't accomplish a thing, and they're very disappointed. So I got this from Fox News. Longest UN climate talks end with little progress. No one really accomplished anything. Now let me see. Yep, didn't do a thing. Didn't do a thing. However, they did agree to meet again in Glasgow, Scotland, in November of 2020. So everybody argued about everything. Nobody really wanted to make any kind of decisions. So if there's some kind of an urgent need to do something, I guess they're falling far short of what their expectations were, which is rather interesting. Now, one thing did come out of this thing, and I will read you the first part of this headline. UN warns U.S. Okay? UN warns U.S. it cannot escape paying punitive climate reparations. UN warns the U.S. it cannot escape paying punitive climate reparations. The United States was warned by the United Nations it cannot avoid compensating poorer nations hit by climate change. Delegates and observers at the COP25, that's what this climate conference was called, COP25. Delegates and observers at the COP25 negotiations in Madrid say Washington seeks a change to the UN Climate Convention that could release it from punitive loss and damage funding for developing nations, which is predicted to run into the billions of dollars. And how much will this be? Well, the UN estimates it will cost approximately $300 billion in reparations. So these countries and small island states are now calling to be compensated for the losses that they might suffer from climate change. And the bill would be approximately $300 billion, give or take a couple of dollars here. So where would most of this fall to? Where would the invoice go for all this? Well, the United States. We could be forced, according to the UN, to pay most of the damages, alleged damages from this alleged climate change. So most of the money, most of the the payment would fall on us, which is kind of interesting because we have done probably more than anybody else to clean up our air and the environment than any other country on the planet. So why we would be billed $300 billion or most of $300 billion, I have no idea. It really doesn't make a lot of sense. But apparently the UN is pretty serious about this because 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I had a story about a international relations professor at the University of Copenhagen. And what is his name? Ole Weaver. And he said the United Nations may resort to military action against states that defy its mandates on global climate change. And he said the United Nations Security Council could, in principle, decide that climate change is a threat to international peace and security. And that being said, they could resort to military action against countries that didn't go along with, that'd be pretty interesting to see how that goes. Yeah, that'd be very, very interesting. So the UN might use military force to enforce their climate agenda. Boy, wouldn't that be, Yep, it certainly would be. Well, everybody needs insurance, right? Everybody needs insurance. You cannot get by without insurance. And what better way to deal with your insurance problems than to contact the Ryan agencies? They have offices in Hornell, Jasper, and Wellsville. They are insurance experts. That's what they do every day. That's all they do is deal with insurance. And unless you know what you're doing, it could be pretty tricky. They are insurance experts. They offer sound, unbiased advice. In other words, they're unbiased because they are beholden to no one insurance company. They have all these insurance companies at their disposal. And when you come in and you tell them, hey, I need insurance for this, that, or the other, they'll say, well, let me see. Let's check out this company and that company and okay, this company is best for you and your needs and your budget. They are the Ryan agencies.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Eddie Garcia.
Checking Week 15 in the NFL Sunday night. The Bills go to Pittsburgh, beat the Steelers 17-10. Buffalo at 10-4 has clinched a playoff spot. Pittsburgh at 8-6 is holding on to the final wildcard spot in the AFC. In late games of note, Cowboys rout the Rams 44-21. Dallas at 7-7 is tied with Philadelphia for the NFC East lead. The Rams fall 2 games out of a wildcard spot. They're chasing the Vikings, who crushed the Chargers 39-10. Minnesota now 10-4 on the year. 49ers lose at home on the final play of the game to the Falcons 29-22. San Francisco at 11-3 has clinched a playoff spot, but they fall out of the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. Early games of note: Texans over the Titans 24-21. Houston at 9-5 moves 1 game up on Tennessee atop the AFC South. The Packers beat the Bears 21-13 to clinch a playoff spot. Patriots clinch a playoff spot, beating the Bengals 34-13, and the Seahawks clinch a playoff spot, beating the Panthers 30-24. They're also now the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs.
I'm Charles Payne, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Boeing is considering cutting back or suspending production of its 737 MAX because of uncertainty over when it will return to service. The plane's been grounded since March following a second fatal crash. The Wall Street Journal says no immediate layoffs are expected because the plant shuts down for 2 weeks for the holiday season. Cineworld, which owns Regal Cinemas, is buying Cineplex. It's paying more than $2 billion. The purchase adds 165 cinemas. DirecTV customers are paying more following its parent company AT&T's merger with Time Warner. The New York Post says after the deal closed, DirecTV began a series of price increases. The Dow added 3 on Friday. The Nasdaq was up 17, the S&P up a fraction. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Ginny Cosola, invested in you.
Hi, I'm Raymond Denon, Vice President of Optima Tax Relief. If you're in debt to the IRS, there's a lot you need to know. Starting with rule number 1, don't mess with the IRS. They can garnish your paycheck, levy your bank accounts, even take your home or business. There's a way out. It's called the Fresh Start Initiative. If you qualify, you could save tens of thousands. For tax help you can trust, call Optima for a free consultation.
Call 800-410-6744. 800-410-6744.
Optima Tax Relief.
For details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Today at the Simmons Rockwell Nissan stores in Horseheads and Hornell, you'll find new 2019 Nissan Sentra SV models with alloy wheels, cruise control, and Bluetooth for only $15,999. Or new 2019 Nissan Titan S Crew Cab 4x4s with a 5.6-liter V8, rear view monitor, power windows, and cruise, now only $32,499. See the savings online at Simmons-Rockwell.com.
Okay, and here we are again. Do you ever buy a lottery ticket? Probably, I would say, I don't know, most people buy at least one lottery ticket or something. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how many people buy lottery tickets, but boy, we do spend a lot on lottery tickets. I got this from CNBC. Americans spend over $1,000 a year on lotto tickets. $1,000 a year. And it seems like an awful lot of money to spend on something of which you have only long odds of winning. I don't know. Anyway, $1,000 a year on lotto tickets. Americans play state lotteries with total sales topping $71 billion in 2017, the most recent year on file, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Consumers each spend an average of about $86 a month on lottery tickets. That seems like a lot of money. But anyway, $86 a month on lottery tickets, including everything from scratch-off cards that come out of vending machines to entries for the Powerball and Mega Millions competitions. Spending on lotto tickets adds up to about $1,038 each year per consumer, and that's according to a recent survey by Bank Rate of over 2,300 U.S. adults. It's worth noting that Bankrate's results are slightly higher than the $70 a month that the Bureau of Labor Statistics found the average American spent between the third quarter of 2017 and the second quarter of 2018. Spending several $100s a year on lottery tickets can make a big dent in your budget, I guess, especially if your paycheck isn't that big to start with. Which is odd because most people, I guess, who would play the lottery need the money, right? So those with a lot of money really wouldn't care one way or the other. But if you don't have a lot of money, you'd probably buy lottery tickets, right? So I don't know. Anyway, and let me see. Yet Americans earning less than $30,000 admit to spending about 13% of their income on lottery tickets, Bankrate found. Now, $1 means different things to different people, okay? As if you make $500,000 a year, probably, hey, big deal. But if you earn about $30,000 or less, it could make a big dent. So I don't know, but people spend a lot of money on lottery. Where did I find this? There are psychological reasons, it says here, why Americans continue to play the lottery even though they know the odds, writes Penn State psychology professor Kevin Bennett. Humans are wired to have unrealistic optimism when it comes to the probability of something happening. That's what he said. Okay, unrealistic optimism. Well, being optimistic's good. Okay, I'm nice and optimistic. I mean, you don't want to be unrealistic and dumb, but a little optimism, that can't hurt. And anyway, so there you go. We spend a lot of money on lottery tickets. Now, if you take that and then you combine that with Publishers Clearinghouse, boy, what a retirement plan. First you win the lottery, then you win the Publishers Clearinghouse. Matter of fact, okay, Publishers Clearinghouse, lottery, that's a heck of a retirement plan. That's really not a bad idea. Okay, anyway, there we go. Oh, I was going to tell you about these. Oh, I can't. Oh, I hear the sounder. Okay, fine. Well, maybe not this morning, maybe tomorrow. I have a whole bunch more here. A big stack of stuff. And I will see you tomorrow at 8:05. Bye.